At Four River Smokehouse, for a limited time, take $5 off on orders of $25 or more when ordering in-store, online, or by phone using promo code Gators Breakdown. Bet this football season with MyBookie. Use promo code Gators and get a 50% match with your first deposit. Only at MyBookie.
Gators Breakdown. Because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters, and you can find me on Twitter at GatorDave_SEC. Florida, Georgia, game preview time, and it's the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, of course, but not necessarily this year. All the hoopla that goes with this game, we won't get to see it this year. No partying, no RV City, all that stuff. Going to feel so much different here in the city of Jacksonville, and just the day of the game, of course, not seeing all that orange and blue and red and black mixed together like we're used to seeing for this game. To break it all down, Chris Doering from the SEC Network, former Gator wide receiver, would join and give his thoughts on this big-time top 10 matchup between the Gators and the Dogs. And then Robbie Steltenpohl from a Rich Tradition College Football podcast is going to hop on too. He joined us before the preseason when we gave a kind of a big Florida-Georgia preview episode in the preseason. Robbie was on that. He's going to hop on to give us a Georgia side of things for this episode as well. So big time Florida-Georgia preview coming up for the big-time matchup. Before we get there, remember, of course, you can find Gators Breakdown at news4jax.com/Gators Breakdown. You'll find all the Gators Breakdown episodes there, as well as a whole ton of Florida-Georgia coverage this week, of course, with the game here in Jacksonville. Please share, rate, and review the show on YouTube. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out here on Gators Breakdown. If you just want the audio version, check us out on your favorite podcast platform, and follow Gators Breakdown on social media on Twitter and Facebook at Gators Breakdown. Former Gators wide receiver, great Chris Doering, joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. You can find him every weekend in the SEC Network as a studio analyst. Chris, man, I hope 2020 is treating you well.
You know what? I can't complain, man. It's been weird for all of us, but I'll say this. I think we've been able to make the best of it. I'm happy that we're watching some football and getting to have a little bit of normalcy on the weekends with what the SEC's provided us.
So what's not going to be normal is a world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Yeah. we know the football games have, the atmosphere has been so different anyway, but now with 2020, maybe one of the aspects that will look the most different to me is the cocktail party. No RV City, no fairgrounds. The fairgrounds will look abandoned compared to a normal Florida-Georgia game. No, hardly any tailgating. The main parking lot's not even opening until 3 hours before kickoff. So, the party atmosphere is just going to be done. But everything that surrounds this game and makes it special is pretty much gone besides just playing the game in Jacksonville.
Yeah, let me tell you what. First of all, I'm grateful for the fact that we're having a chance to watch college football and getting a chance to watch Florida and Georgia renew this great rivalry. I feel a little ungrateful by complaining and like you, I'm disappointed that it's not going to have the same look and feel to it. I think this is one of the special games in all of sports. I mean, the rivalry is great. The setting there in Jacksonville is unbelievable. I love the visuals that we usually have with the half red and black and half orange and blue. I love the pageantry. I mean, the fact that people show up and there's probably 100,000 people outside the stadium while the inside has about 90,000 in it. I mean, it's everything that you could ask for in terms of excitement, and we're obviously not going to get it this year. But I think the fact that we're getting to watch this game, getting the chance to watch the two best teams in the SEC East fight it out and put themselves in position to make it to Atlanta to play Alabama is something we should celebrate.
Absolutely. And so glad we do get this game. And look, third year in a row, Chris, it's a top 10 matchup. Florida, Georgia, ever since Dan Mullen's been the head coach, he's brought this Gator program up, and now it's a top 10 matchup 3 years in a row. Stakes are high. Sets up the winner for a big late season run. But, Chris, it's big for these two coaches.
It's big for these two coaches, and I think the pressure is equal for these two coaches because if you look at it, I think all offseason what we talked about with Florida was, all right, we're primed with a coach and a coaching staff that's been together for the last couple of years. We got returning starters all over the board. We got a starting quarterback that has experience. And the feeling to me was, if not now, when? And so I think that raises the pressure a little bit on the Florida side. Conversely, Georgia's in the midst of celebrating their 40th anniversary of their 1980 national championship team. One, that's great to celebrate, but two, it also reminds you that it's been 40 years since Georgia last won a national championship. So I think there's pressure inherently there. They're trying to get back and do something. I was trying to think about the comparisons. When I was at Florida, we played, 92, 93, 94, 95 during my years, all in the SEC championship game. And I know, again, the Florida team in 96 played for the SEC championship as well. So 5 straight SEC title game appearances for the Gators. This could be number 4 for Georgia. If they're able to knock off Florida and they're able to get back again, it would be 4. So I don't know how many teams have done it 4 years in a row. I have to imagine there hasn't been very many. I would probably say Florida and Alabama are the only ones. But Georgia could join some elite company there. But it just, to me, it's nice to see Georgia and Florida being the game that decides the SEC East. And as much as I loved Florida and Tennessee kind of doing that back in the 90s when I was there, this seems the way that it should be. And so I think there's some inherent pressure that goes along for both these teams, both of these coaching staffs, and the fans are obviously amped up, looking forward to seeing how this plays out on Saturday.
Coach, what have you seen, and if you can speak on the evolution of Dan Mullen and this Florida offense? I mean, how much of it is just him passing more inside of his own scheme, and how much did he actually change the schematics of his offense to suit what Kyle Trask does?
Well, I think that's one thing that Coach Mullen does really, really well, is that he tailors the offense to fit the skill set of his particular team and the characteristics of those guys on the roster. One, let's not downgrade the fact that having a quarterback in college football today, specifically the SEC, having a guy that you can trust, having a guy that's a game changer is of utmost importance. I mean, Florida has really struggled since Tim Tebow left in 2009, trying to find a guy that could be the leader on the team, that could be a big-time performer at the quarterback spot, the most important position on the field. And they finally found it. They finally found it by dumb luck, I think, in a way. I mean, I wonder what the situation would be like had Felipe Franks not got hurt last year. And I give a lot of credit to Kyle Trask for his foresight and belief and faith that something was going to give him an opportunity, and being ready when that opportunity came to take advantage of it. Like the fact that Florida has a trigger man like they do now, surrounded by all of this talent, it really has all kind of come to fruition. And one, you got to thank the previous coaching staff for bringing some of these guys in. I think Dan Mullen's done a tremendous job developing the guys that were on the roster and getting them to believe. But this is the ultimate hurdle, David. I mean, all of the 10-win seasons the last 2 years, that's all great. But the gold standard here, the expectation in Gainesville is getting to Atlanta, playing for an SEC championship game. And if you can't find a way to beat Georgia, then you're never going to find a way to play for an SEC championship. If you remember back in 1990, Coach Spurrier came in and said, look, all of our goals, if we want to achieve anything that's possible out there, we have to find a way to beat Georgia. He put an emphasis on that game. We went on I think in the 90s, we went 9-1 maybe throughout that 10-year period. So this is the game that Dan Mullen's got to get over. And I think in terms of game planning, I was elusive with my answer, but I think he's done a very nice job in terms of being creative and building to his skill set. The way that he's used Kadarius Toney the last couple of weeks has been tremendous. You see him not only as a guy that's a go-to X factor kind of player, but a guy that can catch balls within the flow of the offense, which is something that they wanted him to kind of develop as a true wide receiver. Kyle Pitts has gotten better on the attached offensive line, kind of with his hand on the ground. Go back and look at those runs last week by Kyle Trask. Kyle Pitts was moving guys on the offensive line, and that's not something we'd seen before. So now he's becoming not only a great receiver, but a guy that can be a blocker as well, which makes him even more dangerous at the college level and more valuable at the professional level. So I think there's so much talent that's being kind of utilized in the right way. And I think that's one thing that Dan Mullen does really well, is identify what people do well, putting them in position to be successful, much like my coach did and Coach Spurrier back when I was there in the 90s.
Man, you read my mind of where I was going next, so I can go either way here. So I'm glad you brought that up. In what ways we've seen this evolution, and it's definitely more of a passing offense now. And every time we see it, it's always numbers compared to a Steve Spurrier quarterback when we're talking about Kyle Trask. In what ways is this offense similar to what you played in? And what ways is it different than the fun and gun? We hear Mullen joke all the time about, hey, look, Steve Spurrier's office is right down the hallway. I can go talk to him.
Yeah.
And we can draw up some ball plays. When you've watched this offense the last couple of years with Kyle Trask, are there some similarities to what you played in?
Maybe a little bit, maybe formationally. I mean, our offense was predicated more to stretching the field vertically, throwing the ball down the field. A lot of teams offensively now in college football want to spread the field horizontally and try to find ways to get guys the ball in space, which is something I think everybody does, but there's more of a premium on doing that now. I think that both offenses are requiring a lot of their quarterbacks to understand what the opposing defenses are doing, throw with great accuracy. Those are inherent things, I think, to any sort of offense. But I think one thing that, if I had to be honest about things that I see offensively, I would probably compare more what Sarkisian's doing at Alabama to what we did at Florida, as opposed to what Florida's doing now and what we did in the 90s.
Well, there you go. That's exactly what. So we're on the same wavelength there, Chris, because that's exactly how I was going when we were doing this. And you mentioned Pitts and Toney, and look, Florida does have more weapons to use when the number of plays are there. We've seen that. If Florida's running 70 plays, they can get more guys involved. I mean, of course, that just comes with the territory there. But this Florida offense is explosive, but it is in a different fashion than what Alabama brings to the table. When the way they were able to stretch Georgia's defense vertically. It's more about getting their wide receivers behind those Georgia defensive backs. So are Pitts and Toney enough in the arsenal to have some similar success versus Georgia?
Well, one, I think what you see a lot of times in Florida's passing game over the last what are we in, 4 or 5 games now? I think what they've done is there's a lot of one-on-one plays where our athlete is just better than your athlete. What I think you see from Alabama is, all right, we're going to scheme ways to create mismatches for ourselves, and we're also going to scheme complementary routes to put people in binds and force you to make a choice on what you're going to defend. I think that from a route spacing and a route combination standpoint, nobody's doing it like what Steve Sarkisian is right now. So I think that is the offense that I'm kind of most gravitating to. And that's not taking anything away from what Florida does. I think Florida, one of the things that Kyle Trask does really, really well is throwing with accuracy when guys are in one-on-one situations, whether it's Pitts or Grimes. Those guys are able to use their big bodies to wall guys off. And one of the throws I go back to against Ole Miss, it's a one-on-one situation down the left sideline. I want to say it was Kyle Pitts, where he throws it low and away from the defender. There's a safety that's playing middle of the field that's coming over, but you throw it away to the outside, and he's able to go down and make a play and use his body to shield off the defender. Those are the things that I think we're seeing right now. Florida's just so talented. You want to take Pitts away? That's great. All right, leave one-on-one with Toney, leave one-on-one with Grimes, leave one-on-one with Copeland. It's a pick your poison situation. So I probably would imagine that Dan Lanning wants to try to limit what Kyle Pitts can do. But even against Ole Miss, you got a linebacker underneath, the safety over the top, and Kyle Trask still maybe ill-advisedly throws the ball in there, and Kyle Pitts is able to make a play.
One more thing with the offense and Kadarius Toney and the growth we've seen from him is not just a catch a screen pass and break a bunch of tackles and make something happen. He's not just a wildcat quarterback, or he's not just a take a handoff and make something happen. Now he's a true wide receiver. He's running routes. He's catching passes 30 yards down the field. I mean, what does it take to go from what we saw first couple of years of Kadarius Toney to now being a really complete player, complete wide receiver?
Well, I would be less than transparent if I didn't say that, hey, a couple years ago, I was doing a spring preview for the SEC Network. I was here with Florida and with Dan Mullen, and they all talked about, hey, we want to try to get Kadarius Toney to be a guy that can make plays within the flow of the offense, a guy that is a true receiver, not just where we have to put him at wildcat, not just where we have to give him the ball on a jet sweep. You can do all those things. You can give him the tunnel screen. You can motion him to the backfield like they did on Saturday against Missouri and give him a handoff. But we want him to catch plays within the flow of the offense. And now you're starting to see that. I thought the touchdown that he caught, his second touchdown right before halftime, motion across the formation into a 3-by-1 set, switch release. He runs the seam. You're basically putting the single high safety in a bind as it becomes almost like a 4-vert kind of look. And he beats his guy and then catches the ball with his hands away from his body. It looks like a receiver as he's able to adjust to the football. Like, those are things that I think everybody's been waiting to see from him. And additionally, I think they've looked for him to try to minimize some of the negative plays. He was so apt. He's so athletic, so agile, so apt to go backwards that he could make somebody miss and go 30 yards, but he could also take a 15-yard loss. So they're trying to minimize some of the negative, play to the upside. I think he's done all of those things, and I think he's become a legitimate, well-rounded wide receiver as well.
Yeah, welcome sight there for this Gator offense. Last couple thoughts here, Chris. What did you see from the defense versus Missouri? Definitely by far and away the best game they've played all year.
Yeah.
Might this be a sign that something clicked last week and this defense won't be a liability moving forward the rest of the season? You know, of course, specifically against Georgia this week, because I heard you talk a lot about it on the SEC Network broadcast. And LSU, okay, they played South Carolina. It looked like they figured some things out.
Yeah.
And then a week later, they play Auburn, and it's back to the first few games that we saw LSU.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's not the trend we'll see with Florida versus Georgia this week.
Florida's problems have been much different than LSU's defensive problems. I think LSU's defensive problems stem from their back seven, particularly in their secondary. You know, they have not done a very good job of understanding, what coverages they're in, communicating, making sure that they're recognizing motions and adjusting accordingly. Florida, while it's manifested itself in the back half of the defense, I think it really has all started with their defensive line. Florida has been tremendous over the last decade plus because they've had studs on that defensive lines, guys that could penetrate, that could rush the passer, that could disrupt the run game. And in the first 3 games of the season, I didn't see that. I saw guys that were locked on blocks. They weren't getting any sort of push. There wasn't any penetration. They weren't able to rush the passer unless they were bringing pressure. And then you go back to A&M. A&M's offensive line and Kellen Mond, they did a great job of picking up pressure. When there was a free rusher, Kellen Mond got the ball out, and they were able to make plays. Like, if you're having to cover in the secondary for 4, 5, 6 seconds, you're going to get beat. It's impossible to do for a prolonged period of time. So I think that Florida, what I saw from them against Missouri was a better group effort on the defensive line, able to get some of that penetration I talked about, able to win and disrupt some of the run plays. The third down, getting off the field, Florida was terrible on third and fourth down. I think they were giving up a 66% conversion percentage heading into the game against Missouri, and they were much better on third and fourth down. They were able to create wins on first and second down that had Missouri, and I think they averaged 3rd and 8 last week in that game. Those are tough to convert. And so I thought the defensive line played better. Getting Kyrie Campbell back was big. I think, getting some of those guys in their more familiar positions where they're better fits is important. But I think they played their assignments better. I mean, you go back and look at that Texas A&M tape. Brenton Cox is running around blocks, trying to do his own thing. You have got to play your own assignment in the defense and trust that the other 10 guys are going to do the same. And I think they finally started to do that against Missouri.
So, of course, the big matchup this week will be that Georgia run game, but also that offense led by quarterback Stetson Bennett. How well does he have to play, Chris, for Georgia to walk out of Jacksonville with a win? And look, Chris, I'm from Blackshear, from Pierce County, where Stetson Bennett grew up. I can't go back home if Georgia walks out of that stadium with a victory. I cannot show my face in Blackshear for quite a while, wearing the orange and blue if a guy from my hometown ends up coming out of Jacksonville with a victory.
Well, let me tell you what. First of all, I can't help but cheer for Stetson Bennett just in general. His story as a walk-on, a guy that grew up loving Georgia, that now got his opportunity to be the starting quarterback there. There's a lot of familiarity and similarity to my story, and so I cheer for the guy. I hope he does really well. I hate the fact that Georgia fans have been hating on him as much as they have the last couple of weeks. Obviously, I want Florida to win this week. Obviously, I'm a proud alum of the University of Florida. And I think it comes down. You asked me a question. How much does he have to handle in this offense? I think it depends on a better question for you is how effective is Florida at being able to stop the run? Right. How effective or is that defensive line able to penetrate and play their gaps and be sound in their assignment execution? Those are the things that are going to require determine whether or not Stetson Bennett's the guy that has to beat you. I mean, if Georgia has success running the football early and they're in third and manageable situations, they're able to play action on first and second down, then it's going to be much easier on Stetson Bennett. If Florida has success on first and second down and leaves him in a lot of situations like Connor Bazelak was in on Saturday, then it's going to be much more challenging. So I think the whole game comes down to the ability for Florida to play stout on the line of scrimmage and to win against the run. If not, then it could be a long day for Florida's defense.
It's kind of like the story of last year's game. Florida got what they wanted on first and second down. A good bit
couldn't get off the
Georgia.
field. You're right.
And then Fromm just tore them apart. So if it plays out the same way, can Bennett make those same throws Fromm made in third down situations?
You know what, though? Last year on third down, as we're talking through it, it comes back to my mind right now. Florida was terrible with their assignments on third down, not knowing what coverages they were in, not using proper leverage. I mean, the mistakes that they made were very simple things that they had not shown any sort of previous habit of doing. And so I think that's the thing that I look for this Florida team. I want to see composure. I want to see, I know it's a big game. We all know it's a big game. Mm-hmm. Let's not overhype it too much. Let's keep it simple. Let's go in and treat it like any other game. And let's play with a lot of confidence, but at the same time, let's be relaxed and understand that we're good enough now to win this game. Let's execute on offense. Let's play the way we did on Saturday against Missouri on defense. That's going to be enough to get Florida the win.
All right, that's Chris Doering, former Gator great wide receiver, SEC Network analyst, joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. Chris, man, I can't thank you enough for breaking down this big top 10 matchup for the Gators and Dogs.
Yeah, David, thanks for having me on. It's always fun, and go Gators.
Football season is also tailgating season, and there's nothing better for a tailgate than Four Rivers Smokehouse, named the #1 barbecue in the South by Southern Living magazine. Four Rivers Smokehouse is a family-owned barbecue restaurant specializing in 18-hour smoked Angus brisket. Man, I love me some brisket. Got to have those ribs too, those home-style size, fresh-baked desserts. Get it all at any of the Four Rivers Smokehouse's 13 Florida locations. Four Rivers party packages come tailgate ready, so you can spend more time watching the game, not the grill. Enjoy the Party of 6 package for $55 or the Party of 12 package for $99. Each package includes Four Rivers award-winning barbecue meats, home-style size, buns, and signature barbecue sauce. For a limited time, take $5 off on orders of $25 or more when ordering in-store, online, or by phone using promo code Gators Breakdown. So Gators, whether you're in Gainesville or just in town for the game, swing by Four Rivers Gainesville, located in Butler Plaza. Or if you're tailgating at home in the Jacksonville area for the Florida-Georgia game this weekend, or Orlando, Tampa, or Tallahassee areas, then you can also enjoy the best barbecue anywhere in Florida at Four Rivers Smokehouse. So ever since I started Gators Breakdown, people have been asking me who's going to win, and a lot of the time what team they should bet on. Well, the best piece of advice is where you're betting is just as important as who you're betting on. That's why I always tell people to visit my bookie. They've got deposit matches, free bets, and huge cash prizes for you to take advantage of all season long. NFL action, they got it. College football, they have that too. Plus a mobile-friendly website and top-of-the-line customer service, making their platform a one-stop shop for all your betting needs. MyBookie offers action on everything from championship futures to NFL in-game live betting. Make sure you're covered every step of the way. Sign up at MyBookie today, and when you do, use our promo code Gators to claim a halfway match on your deposit. If you put in $200, they'll spot you another $100 to play with. It's a bonus designed to give you a little help and a head start on your winning season. That's promo code Gators so you can claim your bonus when you make your deposit. Sign up today to begin your winning season only at MyBookie. Robbie Steltenpohl from A Rich Tradition College Football Podcast, a diehard Georgia fan, much like I am a diehard Gator fan. So we're joining forces right here on Gators Breakdown to give a look at this big-time Florida-Georgia top 10 matchup here. Robbie does it with the Rich Tradition College Football Podcast with our good friend Spencer Van Horn. Too bad he can't be on with us tonight. But Robbie, man, thanks for hopping on here.
Oh, dude, no problem. I should have been smart and put my Twitter handle in the little screen so people could see it. But no, man, there are only 2 Florida fans on this earth that I would talk about this game with, and you are one of them. The other one was the other one was my best man in my wedding. So I still hate your background. but I love you as the individual. So, yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about this game.
All right, I'm at least going to put your last name up there on the graphic anyway, so there we go.
Appreciate that.
it will clear up a little bit here. So yeah, Robert, let's get into it, man. Look, similar situation for these teams the last 2 years since Dan Mullen's been head coach. This is a top 10 matchup for the third season in a row, and I mean, look, that's what Florida fans wanted when Dan Mullen was hired. It was like, okay, we've seen already the transfer from Florida to Georgia and who's going to win the SEC East. We've got to get back there. And now Dan Mullen's made this game for the third season in a row, a top 10 matchup versus a Georgia team that, of course, is consistently up there in that top 5, top 10.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to ask both like fan bases, the rational fan bases, and you were to ask them, you know, are you happy where your team is right now? I think pretty much everyone's pretty happy. Like, you brought in Kirby to be competitive, not just in the SEC East, but a national scale. And Florida brought Mullen in to go back to being a dominant team nationally. And I would say that both teams currently are on that trajectory.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's made this game fun. It has made this game, one of the when preseason magazines are coming out before the season starts, this one's circled as a top 10 game. You know, if this year was basically a top 5 game, being circled as far as, games to look out for as college football playoff contenders here, there. So I'll get into it for the Georgia side on you. For you, of course, how big is this one for Kirby? I've always given him credit for how he approaches this game. He comes at it like Steve Spurrier did. He played in it as a player. He lost a good bit of those games as a player. So in turn, it just makes that hate boil over him and bleed over into throwing everything at this game. And look, he gets how much this game means to the fan base and to the players out there playing it because he lived it. He, just like Steve Spurrier did, he lived it. So he knows it's hard to go to Atlanta and compete for championships if you don't win this game. And it's the same thing this year. So look, and I've made it here for the kind of the credit here is, since 2017, Kirby has made it to Atlanta in the SEC championship game with a chance on the line to play for it all. If he loses to Florida this year, this would be since 2017, and he's made Georgia a perennial powerhouse. This would be the first time that hadn't happened if he comes out a loser in Jacksonville this time.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to think that. I mean, he actually, David, I would say 2016, his first year. Like, his first year get there was the only time that he wasn't competing for the SEC championship.
Right.
So okay. I told you that I had an impression for you. I think Kirby has taken a play out of Steve Spurrier's playbook as far as how he ran the Georgia program or Florida program, his philosophy. And I'll never forget. It was like in 2001 or something like that, or 2002, whenever he left Florida. And he was doing an interview, and they were telling me, what made you so successful at Florida? And the old, what I thought was if we beat Georgia, we beat Tennessee, we're gonna get the SEC championship, have a chance to win it all. I remember him saying that, and I kind of think Kirby has taken that kind of mentality. Is that if I can beat Florida, if I can beat Tennessee, then I can get to Atlanta and I can have a chance to win it all. I think he's done a great job when it comes to this game. Now, to your question about how big of a game this is to him, like, look, maybe I'm just too rational, or maybe I'm just too compassionate. And we'll talk more about this later, but I think it's kind of a what's it called? Why can't I think of words right now? I think it's kind of a give me game. Like, as far as like it's a
mulligan.
A mulligan. It's a mulligan year for him. Thank you. And I know that I've I DM'd you this layout, but if you think about since February, he lost Jake Fromm, who wasn't supposed to leave early, that did. Jamie Newman came in and took over as quarterback, but then when the season was there's no official story, but the story that I've heard more than any other is Jamie Newman believed that the season was not going to be played, took money from an agent, and was not going to be able to play, okay, because he took money. Used COVID as a scapegoat, got out of it. JT Daniels was brought in, had knee surgery in December, was supposed to be better, but has had 2 setbacks since then. DeJuan Mathis, coming off brain surgery, was believed to be – it was supposed to be a real deal. It was supposed to be competitive. But as we know, took one big hit against Arkansas and just really hasn't just seemed to be the same since. And so what you're stuck with is Stetson Bennett, who I think he actually does some things right, but people, myself included at times, are so focused on his height and what some of the negative things he's done. We don't focus on the positives, but he's not that prolific, going to win you an SEC title, going to win you a national championship quarterback. So even though I think Kirby is in a great position in this game, I think that he still kind of has a mulligan. And if you want to pull the freaking field situation out, I know you are not going to have this with me, but I'm so sick of talking about the field situation. There are more layers to that story than just, oh, we didn't play him, so he left. There's more to it than that. And I don't feel like getting into that again, but I don't know if you agree with me. I don't know if you see what I'm saying there, but that's how I kind of feel with Kirby this year. That's not to say that he's not going to be ready. That's not to say that he hasn't been coaching his butt off this week, but I just kind of feel like there is a little bit of a mulligan because of the just cornucopia of issues that have happened at the quarterback position this year.
Yeah, I mean, and I know the kind of route you're going with. A lot of people want to say it's maybe self-inflicted of the quarterback situation and everything. And why don't you have a player ready to go? When you have everything else in place, why is it that position that's causing the issue there? And yeah, I mean, he's had Georgia in position to play for SEC championship games, national championship games, because he's beaten Florida, and that's. As you said, that's step one. If you're a Florida head coach, step one is beating Georgia. That's how you get to where you want to go. For Georgia, we've seen it. They started beating Florida. It got them where they want to go and competing for everything there. And yeah, the whole Mulligan year thing, I don't know. I mean, would we think that way if Georgia had beaten Alabama? And
also I will say I'm adding COVID to that whole thing too.
Yeah. I was going to go there too, so go ahead.
But no, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead. I mean, that's probably where I was going to end it. I was like, is it, if Georgia had beaten Alabama, would the feeling be the same as it? Would you have the same feeling going into this game right now?
Yeah, and also to defend Florida, yes, to defend Florida, would their defense have as many issues as they do if they would have had a full offseason to tackle better? I'm not trying to take a shot. I'm just saying, to better your tackling, better your scheme, all this stuff. Would you have been in a better position, or even better yet, would you be able to in better position to run the ball, consistently if you had a full offseason, a spring game, stuff like that? At what, the old adage is a freshman is no longer a freshman after their eighth game.
Right.
Where's the line for a COVID year is no longer relevant, And
Mullen even said that this week in his press conference. It was, hey, we were still learning about this defense, and that contributed to some of the issues that we were seeing. Now, whether you don't believe it or not, okay, that's up to you. That was, and I'm saying that for the fans out there, if you want to take that as an excuse, then so be it. But at least our coach is throwing it out there as, hey, we were still trying to figure out. There were some new pieces on this Florida defense, and we saw the issues there. So
you and I talked about it during the offseason, just via Twitter and stuff. My biggest concern about Florida coming into the season was the huge losses they had on the D line, and also at wide receiver. I think the wide receiver thing has kind of been questioned to some degree. I don't know if the D line things have been answered fully yet, but I really I just think that this whole year has been so weird. I mean, just go look at the Big Ten in 2 weeks. We thought Minnesota is out their right guard, their left guard, their kicker, their punter, and their kickoff specialist. So they lose to Michigan week 1. Okay. All right, fine. Hey, Michigan's back. But then all of a sudden, Maryland puts up like 700 yards on them, and so you don't know what's real.
And then Michigan goes to lose to Michigan State the next week.
Exactly. And Talia Tugavaloa looked horrible in week 1.
Right.
In week 2, he looks better than his brother. So like you just kind of, I think we're still, even though we're 5 weeks into this thing, 5 weeks, right? Yeah, 5 weeks. We're 5 weeks into this thing. I still think we're kind of in this unknown. And I think that needs to be okay. And I'm talking to the fan now. Like, it needs to be okay if you still have question marks. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, part of it for the Florida part was we're coming into 2020 and looking at it as, hey, this is the year to beat Georgia. This is the year all the pieces are coming together. And look, I don't want to use the 2020. I don't want to use the COVID excuse because this was supposed to be the year. This was supposed to be the year it lined up. Kyle Trask is coming back. The coaching staff's intact except for Tim Brewster being the only new hire in the offseason. Georgia was losing this, and this. Yeah. And then COVID hits, and and now it's a 10-game SEC schedule, and now we got to go play Texas A&M, and that played out to be a loss. So, I will give a lot of Gator fans credit for that. It was like, no, this was supposed to be our year. I don't want to hear COVID as an excuse. This was supposed to be our year. We need to go win the game. So, it's fun to break it down.
And see, at the Georgia level, I thought last year was going to be the year that you guys should have won.
Right.
Because Jake Fromm and James Coley were anemic on offense. We're just, ever since the South Carolina game, we're just abysmal offensively, except for even against Florida last year, we were horrible on first and second down. And I'm sure every Florida fan knows that. The only reason why they won is because of conversion on third downs. And so I was of the mindset last year was, and the O-line was not what it was expected to be, even though, yes, people will say, but look how many first-round picks you had. That's great and all, but they did not gel well, hardly at all. They did a poor job at pass or at run blocking. And there's so many other things, but I will not make an excuse for Kirby as far as a COVID year. I will just say that I don't know many teams that are in the top 10 that have dealt with more quarterback adversity than Kirby has this year. And the only thing that I think that is self-inflicted is, again, the Justin Fields thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know what else he could have done. Does that make sense? I just don't know what else he could have done.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it's revisionist history just to go ahead and back and say. Now, don't get me wrong. There were some people saying Justin Fields is ultimately going to be better. Go ahead and play him anyway.
Yeah,
but were you really taking a quarterback that was playing so well, who had basically should have won a national championship game?
100%. And
so it is.
And if you think of that 2018 season, he was dealing. He was dealing in every game except for the LSU game. And then we get to and also Justin Fields was a freshman, and there's not a single person on the planet that's going to get me to believe now that Coley or Cheney was going to be able to use Fields in a way that would have worked. I just don't believe that. And so you look again. I said I wasn't going to talk about the Fields thing, and I ended up talking about it. But
we can move on.
Yeah, but I mean, I also the same question to you though. What is the realistic, but what is honestly the mood towards Mullen on this game this year?
This is the year he's got to get it done. You look, of course, I'm very active on Twitter, and it's this is the theme this week has been, and we're about to get into it just because of Georgia's defensive issues, the quarterback problem that we've already discussed. That no excuses. It has to be this year. And I know you said last year you pointed to it. And I was on your show last year, and you picked Florida to beat Georgia last year. So we see how it turns out sometimes. But from the Florida side of things, it's okay. 2018 definitely excusable. It's Mullen's first year. You're figuring things out. Was Georgia in control of that game? Absolutely. You still found a way to hang around a little bit. Last year, Georgia's limping into the game. They look like garbage versus. They lose to South Carolina. They look like
garbage for 5 straight games leading into that 4 game.
Yeah, but you lose to South Carolina. You play a hard-fought game versus Kentucky. Florida went to Baton Rouge and played a really, really good LSU team and hung with them for most of the time. So you got why people were kind of shifting towards Florida, but if you look at it in a wide scope, it was still, hey, Georgia still has a more complete team at the point. So you can see why they won. Now, this year, it was, Georgia lost all this stuff. And we have a lot more continuity at quarterback. We have a lot more continuity on the coaching staff. And that was before everything that happened at quarterback for Georgia. And now the defensive injuries that we're about to address, looking at the game this week. So now it ramped it up to there is no excuse. It has to be this year. And there was a lot of talk before this year even started. If it wasn't going to be this year, when was it going to be? And now I think that's ramped up even more because of the all the stuff that Georgia's dealing with this week.
Yeah. Since you put it like that, like like Florida fans, I know you don't want to hear this, but like there is some truth to that. Like, because if you don't do it this year, the offense is going to be so great next year for Georgia. Theoretically, a 1 year healthy JT Daniels at quarterback while Brock Vandagriff is getting healthy, but a junior Pickens, a junior Dominic Blaylock, or I'm sorry, sophomore Dominic Blaylock, Kyrus Jackson, Arian Smith being healthy and back as a sophomore, like they just dudes upon dudes upon dudes. I'm excited just as a Georgia fan, like it has nothing to do with Florida, but like just what next year could hold as far as offensively, because finally these 5 stars may actually be able to put it all together. But I would agree with you, man. Like, because also you and I have talked about this before, David. I think we talked about this last year on or we talked this about with Braden, or we talked about it with, last year on our pod. There's a little bit of a, can he win a big game?
Yep.
Kind of question for Mullen. You can show me Mississippi State record. You can show me the top 10 wins. You can show me that. But if you're going to show me that, please show me where those top 10 teams ended at the end of the season, whenever they won those games. But what big game has he won at Florida?
Right.
Like,
and you go to, like you said, the Mississippi State game in 2018, but that team didn't, wasn't what we thought they'd be. And that part of that was because Mullen wasn't the head coach, but still, Auburn last year, but that's still, their claim to fame was beating Alabama at the end of the year. They still weren't, a great team. They fell apart against Minnesota in the bowl game there. People point to Michigan in 2018, but the detractors for that game will say, well, they were missing a whole lot of players in that Peach Bowl game. So, you're right.
Also, people, want to negate bowl wins.
Right. So, I mean, there's been some big wins, but not what you would call the biggest wins.
The games that matter the most.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
because
I said this
in 2018. If you go and look at how that team ended the year and then what they ended up becoming, you can kind of play revisionist history a little bit, but that LSU offense wasn't the same as what we saw last year.
The only time they looked that good was against Georgia somehow, and they beat the freaking brakes off of them. Right. Only good game they had almost the whole year. So
this is it. I mean, it has to be. Look, and this may not even be. I mean, Georgia will be favored in every other game after this, no matter what happens against Florida. But this will be the game, and I don't care what Georgia ends up being this year. It has to be done. Georgia could go on to lose another game and be like, it doesn't matter. You had to go win it. You had to go win it.
In theory, the season is over for one of these teams based off if you win or lose.
Right.
Like it just is. And people will say, no, you still have 4 or 5 more games. Well, yeah, but you don't get to play in the SEC championship because your opponent, because like Florida or Georgia has to lose 2 more games. And if I don't know if you've seen Georgia's schedule, but I don't see a loss on there because their schedule gets a whole lot easier after the Florida game. Praise God for that. But like I just this is the end all be all of games for these 2 teams, because you and I talked about this, and I know other people have said this. The benefit that Florida had was the Bama game, and then they rescheduled. And they put Texas A&M on the schedule, and everyone knew that could be the game for Florida.
Yep.
And unfortunately, it was. And so now it's all cards on the table. And so I got to throw this out there, and I know you're probably going to bring this up, but like, do we even care to look at Kirby's track record against Mullen? Like does that even matter here? Like, because I don't know. I want to believe it does. but I don't know if it does.
I think we have to, and we'll get into it as we move forward right here. Let's take a look at the game, and we'll start with the Florida offense and the Georgia defense and all the big news that comes around that side of the storyline right now. Georgia leads SEC, ranked 12th nationally, allowing just 16.2 points per game. And Robbie, you probably know this stat here. I saw it on Georgia's notes here that they send out to the media. In the Bulldogs' 4 wins this year, they've allowed just a total of 40 points. Their only loss against Alabama, they gave up 41. So there you go. All 4 wins combined, only 40 points scored on them. The one loss, 41 against Alabama. And then you look at Florida, second in the SEC, 10th nationally in scoring offense at 42 points per game. That is the matchup. The matchup is the Florida offense versus the Georgia defense. This is going to be where the game is won or lost for both teams here. So, Rob, you've got to explain to Gator fans here just how big of a loss is Richard LeCounte. That's the storyline of the game. If you want to start singling out players here, it's helpful for Florida. Of course it is. And 3 picks this year for LeCounte, 8 in his career, currently tied for first nationally. Last week versus Kentucky, career high, 14 tackles, a forced fumble. I mean, and
I almost had a pick 6 that he dropped.
Oh, there we go. So, I mean, look, thoughts go out to him. A motor vehicle accident, of course, Saturday night following the win as Georgia come back to Athens. But look, he started 23 straight games for this Georgia defense. We know how good this defense is. He has started 23 straight games. I just reeled off some stats for you. How big of a loss is this for Georgia?
Well, on a personal level, Richard LeCounte may be like top 5 favorite Bulldog of all time.
There we go.
Like for real. Like he just, if you look at his history of being recruited and coming in and day one, and you can hear horror stories of Kirby being hardest on him from day one. And it was because Kirby knew what he had with Richard LeCounte. Some positive I will say is that he is home from the hospital. He was actually at the facility today. He was already starting rehab. Apparently he was cheering up the players and just telling them how excited he is to play again. So like it doesn't seem like he's going to do the opt-out thing that a lot of people thought he was going to do. And praise God that he is not, I'm not talking about the benefit of the game, but praise God he is not as injured as everyone thought he was going to be because he got hit by a freaking car. Mm-hmm. But to answer your question, I think as far as leadership, it is huge. I don't think you can replace a Richard LeCounte. You can just hope someone can produce even close to the level that he can. Because of the way Kirby's recruited, of course, there's another 5-star talent right there, ready to play, but no one has the experience that he does. I was actually super worried. Like Saturday night, I was sincerely worried that we were about to lose to you guys by 17 or more because of all the players that were listed on the injury report. And then come to find out that we're really only going to be without Rochester, LeCounte, and Davis may actually be able to play. Like, I think that was a huge benefit, like a huge, I don't know what adjective to use, but it was just a huge blessing to find out that we weren't going to be out all these dudes, because in the Kentucky game, we had Stevenson go out. We had 3D linemen. We had two linebackers. And so you're like, oh my God, like how in the blue hell are we going to do this thing? And so I think Richard LeCounte is irreplaceable as far as communicator and as far as like the heart of the team. I just don't know. I'm not a defensive guy. Like I don't coach, so I don't know what he does on the field that other players skill, like ability wise. Yeah. I'm not saying communication. I'm not talking about leadership. I'm just talking about skill wise. Because I know he's got like 3 5-stars sitting behind him. So like, are there dudes who can do the stuff that he does skill wise that maybe as fast as he is or whatever? I don't know. I know this. Pitts got really happy. Not that LeCounte got hit by a car, but that he wasn't going to play, because I can guarantee you Richard LeCounte probably would have been covering him most of the game. Yeah,
I mean, so we go and look at this, and you mentioned other names here. defensive lineman Jordan Davis. We'll see where that goes. Julian Rochester will be out. So, and here's the thing: where Georgia is injured right there, in talking about those two players, is where a running team could take advantage. But that's not Florida's offense. And if Georgia still matches up well, where defensive ends and outside linebackers and cornerbacks are still good to go against a passing offense for Florida. So, while that can help pressure up the middle in Trask's face, the Bulldogs will still rely on their defensive ends or outside linebacker pass rushers to create pressure. Azeez Ojulari, Monty Rice, Jacoby Dean, Nolan Smith, Quay Walker, Jermaine Johnson, Trevon Walker. I mean, the list goes on for guys.
You can just keep listening, guys.
So while it is beneficial that those injured guys may not play for Florida, there's still the style of offense that Florida plays. You still got great matchups from the Georgia side at cornerback, outside linebacker, and at defensive end.
And also Georgia's D-line depth is incredible as well. Freshman Jalen Carter, number 88. Y'all are going to see a lot of him. Devontae Wyatt is going to play a lot. Oh my gosh. Why can't I remember his name? Another freshman that's just a big body dude who's going to be playing up front too. That was something that I was talking to a buddy about today, is the fact that Georgia still has the right pieces to match up against Florida. And something that we didn't mention is that Georgia leads the SEC with 17 and a half sacks. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you 5 different instances where they should have 5 more, but Adam Anderson and Ojulari overrun the quarterback because they get so excited they overrun them.
And as good as this defense has been, that was kind of been the one knock before this year was not getting sacks.
Yep. Yeah. And so to Florida's credit, they have not given up a lot of sacks. But what's going to bend, what's going to break, but I'm going to tell you this, David, and I firmly believe this. If Florida can't at least get at 80 yards of rushing,
yep.
I don't think you're going to win this game. I don't think you really. And I'm not saying you have to run more than Georgia because of that stat that you and I both know.
Since you brought it up, I'll go there because that's kind of the perfect transition between the two teams right now. Look, and I'll point it out. In the last 14 games between Florida and Georgia, the team that's run the ball the most yards has won the game. Yeah. Looking at the rankings right now, Georgia's rush defense, first in the SEC, 5th in college football. Florida's rush offense, 9th in the SEC, 73rd in college football. Georgia, the rush offense, 3rd in the SEC, 39th in college football. Florida's rush defense, 6th in the SEC, 41st in college football. But look, for this game, that stat is a trend only. It doesn't mean – look, more than likely, Georgia's going to outrush Florida.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean Georgia's going to win. It doesn't mean Florida's going to lose.
Absolutely.
It doesn't.
You have to have some balance.
You go. You have to. And the best way I've explained it, Robbie, for and especially with those two guys out on Georgia's defensive line, Florida has to have game scenario running. If it's 3rd and 2, go pick up 2 yards. Yes. If it's 4th and goal, go get 4th and goal. If it's goal line situations and you need a score or you need a first down, maybe that's where Florida can get take advantage there. You're not going to outrush Georgia, and it's that stat right now is circumstance. That's all it is. It doesn't mean
do not matter to the individual moment. But to your point, and I know we let's mention a player on Florida side, Toney.
Yep.
Kadarius or Kadarius. Always mess it up. Say again.
Kadarius
Toney, a dude, he is really good. However, I will say that Georgia, and you were alluding to this, Georgia's speed on the outside will not let that whole end around stuff work. You're gonna have to, Toney is going to have to be a receiver. He is going to have to be get a screen or something, but he's going to have to run a route and because so many people I've heard this week talk about how they just need Toney and Pitts, just like Alabama had Devontae Smith and Waddle. I mean, no offense, but I don't think that Florida has 3 dudes on their team that can run 4 340s the way Alabama does with just in the way that they run.
No, and I brought that up. For this Georgia defense, that's how they got beat. There was the vertical routes on the outside. Yeah. Pitts and Toney don't do that. Pitts and Toney are really good. Put it this way,
Yes.
and this is the best way I can explain it. Alabama doesn't have a Toney and a Pitts. Florida doesn't have a Devontae Smith and a Jalen Waddle. And it's two different styles of attack.
And also, Florida doesn't have a running back.
Right.
That
offensive line. Yep.
that an offensive line that creates so much balance. Because people don't realize this, but Bama, or they don't talk about this, but Bama also ran for like $150 on Georgia too.
Yeah.
And so so that's what I'm saying. Like if Florida can get like 80 yards of rushing to keep the game, to keep Georgia honest on, to pay attention to the run game. Like I think there is something there, but also, would you agree with me if I said that I think this is the best D line that Florida has faced?
Oh, yes. Yeah. And it's not even close.
Okay. And so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I mean, A&M has got a good defensive line.
Yeah.
And Florida had success against A&M. Look, I know Florida lost the game. It wasn't because of Florida's offense.
No, Florida could have won that game if you play 9 more times. Like
right.
Florida could have won those games.
Yeah. So, this is – and we knew coming into the season it was going to be the matchup of the season. This Florida offense versus this Georgia defense, and the 11-on-11 that go along with that. But kind of going along and picking on that stat a little bit. What if one of the unexpected happens? If Florida does somehow outrush Georgia, they probably win the game. If Georgia outpasses Florida, they probably win the game.
Yeah.
But looking at that stat, there's nothing more to it to me this year.
It's anecdotal.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean like. However, and I don't know if we were going to talk about this, but the weather. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to storm. Like there's supposed to be quite a bit of rain, or at least
around Saturday. So we'll see how it times out.
Let's move that game to Athens the way it should be.
If we're going to look at a stat here, look, the stat that matters, and you said maybe looking at Kirby and how he's matched up against Mullen or Florida the last couple of years may not matter. If we're going to look at stats that have to get better for Florida, it's not rushing the ball better than Georgia or anything like that. It's overall getting yards. 2018, only 275 yards versus this Georgia defense. Last year, only 278 yards on his Kirby Smart Georgia defense. So, it sounds ridiculous right now because of the way Florida's moving the ball, but can Florida crack 300 yards on Georgia? Because they haven't done it the last 2 years. Now, of course, we know this offense is light years better than 2 years ago. It's better than last year, but a lot of the same pieces, and that offense was still playing good going into the Georgia game last year. So, it's probably going to take Florida to get close to 400 yards of offense to feel comfortable in, say, you're going to win that game.
Yeah, look, man, I think there is some arrogance that some Georgia fans have because they automatically just assume that, because Kirby has had such success, like the averages, I think you said, I don't know if you said it, but 13.6 points a game, when those two face off against each other. Like, I think that's all well and good, and that's a great stat to have, but it's just like rushing the ball. It does not matter in that current game that's coming. It doesn't matter. I would argue that except for Dak Prescott, Trask is probably the most consistent quarterback he's had. He's had since Tebow or Dak Prescott. But to me, it's all about if Georgia cannot get pressure on Trask, it does not matter. If Georgia cannot get pressure on Trask, then Trask is going to have a field day, and he's going to throw for 471 and 4 touchdowns, and it's just going to be a field day. For me, you're right. And I said this today. I know we're about to break down the Georgia offense versus Florida defense, but to me, it was this matchup. It was the the offense versus Georgia's defense that's going to dictate of how this game goes. Because at the end of the day, we know one thing that Georgia's definitely going to do well, and that's going to be run the ball. Yep. Now, how well they do it is, TBD, but we know they're going to run for their 175. It may take 40 carries to get there, but they're going to do it. So I don't know if you want to transition over, if you wanted to add anything else to that, to the matchup between the two.
No, we can shift right there. Robbie, man, I grew up in Blackshear, Georgia, which is one hometown of one Stetson Bennett as well. So of course, the personal connection there of him being from my hometown and kind of just keeping up with his career and all that. And it's so weird seeing him the starting quarterback for Georgia. When he was recruited and played and walked on at Georgia, transferred away, comes back, and now he's a starting quarterback. Look, it's weird, and I've joked about this a couple times here. 2018, Dan Mullen's hired, has a recruiting class. He signs Emory Jones. Georgia signs Justin Fields. 2020, we get Kyle Trask versus Stetson Bennett. Nobody in their right mind would have ever picked that matchup back in 2018. So it's just so weird. So we talked quarterbacks a little bit at the beginning of this segment here. So what is it about Stetson Bennett that it can give you some belief from the Georgia side of things that, hey, look, he's not great versus zone, but he's with all the matchup problems that Georgia's athletes can give you. If you're going to play man, they can beat you in that situation. They can attack a man defense. But that's what Bennett's much better in that man situation, making defenses pay. But we know it's all about stopping that Georgia run game. You alluded to it. That's the best path for Georgia to win this game, to help out Stetson Bennett. And I know Florida did a good job last season stopping the Georgia run game. And if Florida can replicate that, then you take your chances on Bennett being able to beat you. If the Dogs can get the third and shorts, convert that, and it helps Bennett make some easy throws, keeps the chains moving, I believe that the game plan would be to play it safe, slow the game down, keep that Florida offense on the sideline, third and manageable, convert those, rinse and repeat to keep that Florida offense on the sideline.
No, so I want to start this conversation about, I want to kind of say what, give the Gator fans update on JT Daniels.
Oh yeah.
So from what I've been told and what I have read, because I do have connections on campus at UGA, is that Daniels is cleared to play, yes, but he is not mobile enough, and he is not confident enough in his knee to where Mulligan feels comfortable making him the starter. And he is still running scout team in third string because of it. And DeJuan Mathis is second string. Yes, it's true that he almost transferred this past weekend, but after a conversation with Mulligan and with Kirby, he decided to stay. Now, I don't know what that means after this game. I don't know what was said. I don't know if a big bag of money was passed across the table. I have no idea. I just know that DeJuan Mathis is still at Georgia, and he is the second string quarterback. Stetson Bennett offers a knowledge of the system. He offers I think there is something to the leadership that he offers. And also, this because you know his background, but he did spend an entire season leading his Division II team to a national championship game. He's not ignorant to big games. He's not ignorant to games. He's just apparently ignorant to big defensive linemen holding their arms up. So coming into this game, I wanted to make a case for Stetson Bennett, if you don't mind.
Yep.
Stetson Bennett, except for the first half of the Arkansas game where he really didn't play, till the end. From the second half of the Arkansas game to the first half of the Alabama game, so about 3 games worth of halves, we have seen very quality, very good play by Stetson Bennett, which led to an offense that was very productive. Would you agree or disagree with that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. However, because he was asked to throw so much against Bama, and he made poor decisions at times against Bama, we saw him, obviously we lost to Alabama. And then fast forward to last week, we had 7 drives. 2 were touchdowns, 2 were end of halves, 1 was a punt, and 2 were awful interceptions by Stetson Bennett, it seemed like we just owned them. And, both drives, it just seemed like they couldn't stop us until Stetson Bennett gave them the ball literally within the 10-yard line. So I actually don't believe that the last 3 quarters is exactly who Stetson Bennett is. I would like to believe that he is also the guy who can give you 3 straight games of quality play of an offense that is actually way more dynamic and better than anything we saw last year. Now, I'm not saying that Stetson Bennett is better than Jake Fromm. What I'm saying is I think Todd Monken is far superior to Jim Chaney and James Coley as an offensive coordinator for the talent that Georgia has. But it comes down to, can Stetson Bennett be consistent and make good decisions consistently? So there's my defense for Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, and something that might help him out a little bit in the first half. Zachary Carter for Florida, defensive lineman, will be suspended from the first half for the fight in the Missouri game. So that does beg the question of how Florida's going to rotate some guys. Kyrie Campbell came back last week, really helped out Florida defensive line, play some guys in their more natural positions. Brenton Cox played his best game because, hey, look, we asked him to play rush in. That's what he needs to play. He wasn't playing out of position, so he played his best game. We know his hair would be on fire going against his former team on Saturday. But you might see some young players like Gervin Dexter, Chatfield, Princely Human Mullen having to fill in for Zachary Carter. But as you said, Robbie, and you kind of pointed it up, the kryptonite so far for Stetson Bennett is pressure up the middle, right in his face, and defensive linemen getting their hands up in the air. And, he's a short quarterback. There's no other way to explain it. I mean, he's just a short quarterback, so that's going to be an issue.
He's 5'10" with high cleats on. And when you're that short and you have a short release, and look, man, has the
offense changed in the last couple games at all?
You tell me, because the first half against Bama we looked unstoppable.
Right, exactly.
The first half against Bama we looked unstoppable, and then the second half it didn't feel any different than the first half. It just felt like Stetson Bennett made bad decisions.
Right. So I guess that's where I'm going. Since there was the bad second half, do they cut half the field off from him? Do they start rolling him out more? It's
the running game wasn't the issue against Bama. We had 3 running backs on pace to get over 100 yards, but then towards the end of the third quarter, after the third interception, he had to we stopped running the ball. And then against Kentucky, Zeus went off, and that's what I'm saying. Against Bama or against Kentucky specifically, if those 2 drives that ended in interceptions, if they end up in points, period, we win by 21 to 24 points. We win that game handily. And no one's asking a question of, well, is Georgia really going to be okay for this Florida game? You know what I'm saying? And so, to be honest, and Stetson Bennett said it perfectly after the game. He said, the offense played really well. I just didn't. And I think that is the undeniable truth. And look, Florida fans are gonna push back and say, well, if you don't have a good quarterback, you can't have a good offense. And I would agree with that. However,
well, you can always point to last year's game.
100%, 100%. But I've been watching Georgia games for my entire college football loving life since I was 5 years old. I am confident that this play caller and Todd Monken and this quarterback coach and Buster Faulkner is way better than what we've had prior to in Kirby's tenure. But the maximized version of this offense will not be seen until we have a more talented quarterback, and that's not Stetson Bennett. But however, that does not mean that Stetson Bennett can't win this game, because Stetson Bennett showed the whole country for at least a half that he could put up points against the best team in the country. And I don't know what more defense I can give him, because I could definitely take him to task for poor decisions that he's made over the last 2 games too.
Yeah, one aspect, Robbie, besides Bennett, that can help him and this Georgia offense here, man, the electric Georgia running backs here. I mean, Zamir White, a lot of what we traditionally have seen at Georgia at running back, he'll be the main focus for stopping this Georgia offense coming up Saturday. But look, my worry is one of those more electric guys out of the backfield matched up against a Florida linebacker. James Cook coming out of the backfield. We saw remember the catch and run, the catch and run versus Alabama.
He did it again against Kentucky, by the way.
Yeah,
and it was a shoelace tackle that saved another touchdown for 60 yards. Yeah,
so those type of plays. Him. I mean, look, Florida got gashed by his brother plenty of times. I don't need another Cook to go off on Florida either. I don't need that to happen Saturday. But it's I know what Zamir White is. I know what I'm getting in Zamir White. It's the other guys, McIntosh and the Milton. I mean, what's going to happen with those guys?
Yeah. And also to throw this out there, George Pickens will play. He's been practicing this week. And like from what I understand, McIntosh will probably not play, which some people may think, well, he's got another, they've got another dude somewhere. The thing is, Kenny McIntosh prior to the Alabama game when he got hurt in the second quarter was third in the nation in kickoff returns. Kickoff returns. And so like I've been praying that he gets better quick because Georgia's special teams has been like, as far as returns, have been okay since Kirby's been there, but this was the first year where they looked dynamic. And thank you, Scott Cochran, from coming over from Bama and being our special teams coach. But you're 100% right. And also, so no one, if you don't follow Georgia football, you're not going to know this, but against the Kentucky, Rosemy, a freshman wide receiver, played literally every snap of offense against Kentucky. For 73% of the plays against Kentucky, there were at least two freshman wide receivers on the field. Last year, having freshman wide receivers really hurt this offense. This year, I believe it's become a benefit because they are talented. Last year's class of wide receivers, regardless of what people think about them right now, I think last year's class will be some of the best receivers that Georgia's had in a very long time as a class, as a group.
Oh, I mean, Florida fan, if you follow recruiting, you know that group of Georgia wide receivers there.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. Thank you, James Coley, for helping us get there, guys. But we're probably not going to get another wide receiver out of that state again, so anytime soon. So don't worry about it. But like just the mixture of Pickens being back, Kyrus Jackson,
probably been Bennett's favorite target so far.
Yes, and Rosemy and Burton, and also let's not forget the 6'8" Mongoid Darnell Washington, and the 6'7" Mongoid and Trey McKitty. It's so frustrating. Like,
there you go.
It's so frustrating that if we just had a healthy, not even a healthy JT Daniels. If we had Jamie Newman, I seriously think they're talking about us in the same way they talk about Ohio State. I really do. I really do believe that. Look, and you could say, of course you do. You're a Georgia fan. You always think every year is your year. But there's just something to.
We had you on in the preseason, so everybody can go back and listen to that episode.
Okay.
So.
I wish I could go back and just sing to that version of Robbie. Thank you, my old friend, because that's the way it feels right now. But at the same time, David, this is to where I'm going to critique Florida. This is also going to be the best O-line Florida has seen.
Mm-hmm.
I think Georgia's O-line has gotten increasingly better every single game this year. If you look at the stats, that shows that. The PFF grades show that. Georgia has been through the ringer when it comes to defensive linemen. From Arkansas, we won't count them because they're okay, but they don't have elite D linemen. But from Auburn, Tennessee, Bama, and then Kentucky, who has two projected second or third round D linemen out on their team, on their defense, Georgia has been through the ringer when it comes to elite defensive linemen. I don't know if Florida has that. Now, please correct me if you disagree with that. I would love to be wrong there, but
well, no, I mean, I can't feel confident. I mean, like I said, Florida's just now coming off their best performance of the season on the defensive front versus Missouri. So that's and don't get me wrong, the rush defense hasn't been terrible. It's been the back end problem, but no, and I've seen it plenty of times on message boards and Twitter too. Gator fans know that this is by far the best offensive front, running game, all that combination there, the offensive line and the running back. It's the best one Florida's by far faced this year. And look, Texas A&M run in the second half of that game ran all over Florida. So you can't have that happen there. So.
I don't know if you can say this. I don't know if you know an answer to this, but because Mullen is so weird about this stuff, but are y'all going to be out guys too this weekend?
They would have to be bleed overs from last week. If so, there would be nobody new. So I would think, besides Zachary Carter, who got suspended for the fight, I expect Florida to be pretty close to full strength there.
Are y'all gonna have your kicker?
I would think so. But like you said, it's been pretty quiet on that front this week. But I would imagine, but it is a guess on my part right now, because I will admit I have been out of it the last couple of days with all this election stuff for jobs. So I'm just now catching up today. So
that's not like some lingering, like, oh my gosh, if they don't have this guy, then Georgia has the equation to win. It's just been weird. I didn't expect y'all to have many missing pieces against Mizzou, and then I saw y'all's list, and it was like 10 dudes that were out, and you have no idea why. You have no idea if it was COVID. You have no idea if it's injury. You have no idea if a guy rolled his ankle. You have just no clue. And so I was just curious. I think at the end of the day, Florida's going to go single high safety and say, Stetson Bennett, throw over our tall D lineman and beat us. And honestly, I don't know if there's a better thing to do.
Yeah.
And, I will say this, and I told a buddy this today. I don't think Grantham is going to be blitzing like crazy on third down again.
I don't either. And until Bennett shows better play against zone, and Todd Grantham would rather play in zone. He would rather run zone. He manned up more last week, and it helped. Will he revert back and play more and make Bennett fit into some windows? Or will he man up and you take your chances there, because Georgia has some athletes, and that's the danger of playing man-to-man with elite talent, is you can get beat.
Yeah. I mean, and that, my feelings about Todd Grantham. I do not have positive things to say about that man.
Most Gator fans don't either, Robbie.
There's a small part of me that wants the mailman to just deliver all over the place. And so Grantham gets fired, and I never have to see him again in the SEC. But who knows, Ole Miss may go hire him next year. But I just can't stand that man. Whatever. I can't believe Rick ever hired him. It does come down to Florida. Florida does not have to shut down the running game. They just need to slow it down to make Georgia get to down and distance, like long downs and distances. Here's like I just said earlier, if Georgia can't get pressure on Trask, they're going to lose. On the offensive side of the ball, if Georgia is constantly in 3rd and 7 or longer all game, they're going to lose. Yep. And I don't see how you put Stetson Bennett in those situations and you come out victory. I think special teams wise, I think we're actually pretty even. Yeah. I think Camarda is probably going to be a Ray Guy finalist right now. I think he's like 2nd in the country in punt average, which is great. But I think McPherson and Podolsky, or that's not his name, but Pod, they call him Hot Pod or whatever.
Yeah.
I think they're equal, as far as like really good kickers, consistent kickers that you can rely on. So I really do think it's just going to come down to can Florida slow down Georgia's running game, and can Georgia get pressure on Trask?
Robbie, key for me, man, and as we're kind of wrapping up here, for Florida, get off to a fast start. I mean, the last couple of years, Georgia's been putting the pressure on Florida. And in 2018 and 2019, Georgia goes up 10-0 before Florida even gets a score. It makes a game out of it. At one point last year, it was 16-3 in the third quarter before Florida, came back and made a game of it. So, for Florida, put some pressure on Georgia early and try to knock them out of their game plan. And the Bulldogs have been able to stay in their run-focused approach the entire game the last couple of years. So make Stetson Bennett fight from behind early on in the game. Get some early momentum if you're Florida. Florida's going to go pass heavy anyway, so Florida's game plan really won't change all that much if they're up or behind. But put some doubt in Georgia's mind for a change early in the game, and don't make them feel comfortable as they have. Georgia's felt in control the last 2 years. Yes, the games have been kind of close, but for the most part, Georgia felt like they had control of the game. So the 2 years ago, what was it? Felipe Franks hit Freddie Swain right after the third quarter. It was 14-13 Florida in the third quarter, but Georgia responded right away and then just didn't look back. even if Florida was up in the third quarter 2 years ago, but you still didn't really feel like Florida had control of the game at that point. So really, 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 I think it's just important and I'm not saying it has to happen for Florida to win the game, but it would be nice to see for a change how far that can go for a Florida victory if they put the pressure on Georgia early.
No, I think you're absolutely right. There are so many scenarios in my head about how this game could go. And one of them that could easily happen, and I think you know this too, if Georgia punches them in the mouth and they can't punch back, and Georgia and Zeus goes off and Kenny and Milton, gets his 60 and 7 yards after contact, and James Cook, is used on wheel routes and uses matchups really well. Like, there is a world in which, like, this game is ugly, for Florida. At the same time, there is a world in which the single high safety makes Stetson Bennett throw 2 or 3 interceptions again. Maybe one of them goes for pick 6. I don't think Georgia's defense is going to have a bad game to where we get blown out again.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is Florida is going to have to take what Georgia gives them and get points every time they get the ball, whether it's a field goal or whether it's a touchdown. And I think, Georgia has to, like you said, keep the pressure on Florida's defensive line all game long. Just use this incredibly talented offensive line that you have built. Use this, offensive scheme that you have and blow them off the ball. I'm not saying push them around like middle schoolers because, they're not middle schoolers. But you know what I'm saying? Just like you've got to put pressure on Florida's defense all game long. Make Todd Grantham do what he doesn't want to do. And this is one of those years, man, where I think, it's, last year I was worried that Florida team at the time they were like 8-1 going into that game.
7-1 maybe.
7-1.
Yeah.
I was worried that there was a little bit of this may not be real kind of thing.
Yeah.
This year, I don't think that at all. I think this is a legit Florida team. Their offense is prolific. It may not be Alabama prolific, but I don't think it has to be. What teams are Alabama prolific this year? And also, is Alabama prolific without Waddle now? I kind of have to ask that question. But the big concern is Florida's defense, and also, Dave. I know we don't have time to talk about this, but are y'all still going to have time? Are y'all still going to have trouble tackling?
Yeah. I mean, it was much better last week, but I just said, what rears its head from the Florida defense before? Maybe nothing, maybe something, maybe we'll see where it goes from there. But that's a different animal. We saw the Florida defense definitely improve last week. Different animal with the Bulldogs in Jacksonville, of course. So, Robbie, man, any final thoughts here before I let you go, man?
Are we gonna make picks tonight?
You want to make picks?
You tell me.
Let's go for it.
All
I got 30-24 Florida. I do think the Florida offense ends up being a little too much in the end. But I mean, here's the thing, Robbie. I've talked myself into picking Florida the last 2 years, and here I am doing it again. And it's just hopefully I didn't talk myself into it again.
There's just something that Kirby does differently this week than he does any other week. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they're jacked up on HGH. I don't know if they're in the locker room. I don't know what it is, but there's just something different about the way he coaches during this week. And this team is always ready. And I think after last week, hearing 2 weeks ago, losing to Bama and then having for 2 weeks to hear all that crap and then just not having a great game against Kentucky as a whole, I just think they're going to come out of this game ready. And I want to believe that Stetson Bennett is the guy who gave me three good games worth of play then instead of the last 3 halves not looking great. And so I'm going to pick Georgia to win. To me though, if Georgia wins this game, it's like 30-17. I think the only way Georgia wins this game is to keep Dan Mullen under 20 points. the way that Kirby has done in the past.
Yeah.
However, I will say this. I want to make this very clear to Gator Nation out there. I am not confident in this pick. I could easily see us lose because Stetson Bennett just isn't good enough. But I've got to trust my coach. You know,
that's what I was going to get. Yeah.
I got to trust Kirby. Kirby was brought in to win this game. And as I said at the beginning, you know, he's got a little spur. Well, got to win this game. Got to win Jacksonville so you get to Atlanta. You know, like, and so I will say this. I actually am someone who respects Dan Mullen very much. And regardless win or lose, I still respect Dan Mullen after this game. You know, so yeah, this has been fun, man. This has actually been the most in depth I've heard of this game so far this week. So thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Absolutely. Can't wait. Yeah, I just kind of go into I do think Pitts will probably end up being too much in the end with the LeCounte injury out there. I just think, you know, we've seen him kind of go quiet in second half of games this year. I think Mullen scheming him up this week. If it's a close game, all right, I know the fourth quarter, I got to go get my guy the ball. One of the best players on the field when Florida's on offense, especially for Florida's offense, of course. But, you know, taking everything into account, I think scheming something up to get your best player the ball late.
If you told me to list three unstoppable players in college football that are healthy right now, it goes Devontae Smith, Rondell Moore, and Kyle Pitts.
Yeah.
You know, and Rondell Moore, we don't even know if he's healthy or not. So it would be Kyle Pitts and it would be Devontae Smith. I completely agree with you. I want to say this. I think George Pickens is about to have a game because he has not had one yet. He has only got 13 catches. He has been injured for a game and a half, but he's only got 13 catches on the year. And eventually the 5-star has to show up because he does. And he's an elite player. He is not some scrub who's going to be a bust. Like, he is a dude, but he has been bracket covered so much. And he's been out for, you know, essentially a two and a half or a game and a half. Man, like, can I just ask this? So, like, and then I know I want to go, but who gets more affected by a loss coach wise? Because I would think it'd be Mullen, right?
Maybe. I mean, a lot of stuff that's, you know, went on off the field in the weird last couple of weeks. And plus, as I said, going into the season, this was everybody was pointing to it. Everybody was pointing to this Georgia game as it has to happen this year for it to happen. Yeah, so I think so. I mean, if Kirby loses it, I mean, I think kind of going back to your point maybe earlier, I think maybe people do give him the excuse where he doesn't have a quarterback. I mean, I've seen that actually floating around out there. You know, David Pollock will say, "Oh, well, he doesn't have a Justin Fields." Well, I mean, he did, but who does? So I don't know. That one is a tough question. You know, of course, I can look at it more from the Florida side and what Florida fans think. And okay, well, you know, no, it's inexcusable to go in 3 versus Georgia in your first 3, no matter the situation. You got to find a way to get a win there somewhere. And this is the year that you're looking to do it. And you can't. In the eyes of many Florida fans, this is your best opportunity. Go make the most of it.
And fun stat, and then I promise I'll shut up. And I told you this off the air before we started. It took Mark Richt 11 years to get 3 wins against Florida. Kirby has done it in 4, and it took Mark Richt 12 years to get his 4th win. And Kirby has an opportunity to get his 4th this year. And so, like, you know, I don't know. Like, the funny thing is, like, David, neither one of us are definitive in our teams this year. You know, neither one of us are definitive on anything. You know, I'm sure we could find fans that would be definitive one way or the other. But, like, I'm just not confident. The only thing I'm confident in is that our front 7 is going to be awesome. Like, that's all I freaking know. Shorter, like, you need Shorter to show up too, right? I mean, it can't just be Pitts and –
Oh, yeah, so somebody else is going to have to show up. Exactly. It can't be just be Pitts. It can't be Copeland. I mean, it can't just be Pitts. It can't be just Toney. Those guys can lead you like they have all year, but you're going to need a big catch from somebody along the way. So whether that be the Trevon Grimes or Justin Shorter, Jacob Copeland, young Xavier Henderson, or, you know, somebody like that, Trent Whittemore, who played very well versus South Carolina a few weeks ago. Yeah, I mean, Kadarius Toney and Pitts can carry you, but you're gonna have to get a big play, a big third down, a short yardage touchdown from somebody else.
Well, I'll shut up. I could keep talking about this for another hour. I just appreciate you letting me come on and be part of your show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hopping on. That's Robbie Steltenpohl. You can find him with his podcast out there with our good friend Spencer Van Horn. Let everybody know out there, Robbie, how they can find out.
It's called a rich tradition, and you can find it on any platform that you listen to podcasts. We are more national as far as our college football podcast. Of course, we do probably spend a little bit more time on Georgia than normal, but we just love talking about all the storylines and all the recruiting and stuff like that. And you can find me on @SpiderDude64 because I was in middle school whenever I created my Twitter account, apparently. And Spencer, you can find him at SVH or SV Horn at SV Horn on Twitter. And just so this is said, I listen to this episode. I listen to the show every week because of you and because of Will and because of the great work y'all do. So
thanks, man.
I want to make that clear. I love you guys, and I appreciate you always being respectful to me and my Georgia fandom.
we know how it is, man. We know how it is. There's nothing better than college football fandom. So we know exactly how it is. So all right, for Robbie and earlier in the episode, Chris Doering, Gator great wide receiver, SEC Network analyst, of course. Thanks to those two guys for hopping on this Florida Georgia preview here on Gators Breakdown. I am the host, David Waters. You can find me on Twitter @GatorDave_SEC. Guys and girls out there, thanks for listening to this episode of Gators Breakdown.